Hi everyone and welcome to Behind Dark Minds, the channel that explores the darkest corners of true crime with a different perspective. Here, we not only look at the crime, but we also seek to understand the perpetrators, examining their backgrounds, mental health, and the factors that led them to unthinkable acts. By analyzing the full story with empathy, we aim to shed light on the complexities of crime, trauma, and the human experience. I'm Nina Clark, and in today's episode, we are going to analyze the case of the Parkland school shooting. We are going to talk about the timeline of events of that day, the perpetrator's background, the arrest, the court case, and the aftermath. And I'll also share my opinion with you. Alright guys, this is my first video, so I hope it doesn't suck. Please subscribe, like, and comment, and you can tell me if it sucked. But I hope you like it. So let's begin. Parkland is a suburban city located in Florida with around 34,000 inhabitants, a crime rate 77% lower than the US average, and household income of around $200,000, being one of the richest cities in the state. The city has 5 public schools and 1 high school, Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School was founded in 1990 and accommodates more than 3,000 students, around 138 teachers, and 1 school resource officer, ranking 716 of over 20,000 best public high schools in America, with an A+ overall grade. Unfortunately, on the afternoon of February 14, 2018, tragedy struck the town when a shooting took place at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School, killing 17 innocent people and gravely injuring 17 more. The perpetrator, Nikolas Cruz, was a former student that was expelled and banned from the school campus for bringing guns, ammunition, and knives to school. He has a huge history of behavioral issues, violence, learning disabilities, and mental health struggles that was observed by family, friends, and teachers since he was a baby. He was adopted by a loving couple, but both of them died before the incident. His father, Roger, died when he was 5, and his mother, Linda, died 3 months before the shooting. His bio mother was a drug addict that reportedly used drugs and drank alcohol during his pregnancy, will likely contribute to Nicholas's disabilities. We're going to get into all that further in the video. Now we are going to talk about the timeline of events of that day, beginning earlier through Nicholas's footsteps leading up to the shooting. Nicholas was texting 2 contacts, JT, a friend of his, and Warning, love of your life, his ex-girlfriend. He started texting them in the morning of February 14, 2018, right up into the time of the shooting. With Warning, the love of your life, he was texting his ex-girlfriend saying if she wanted him to go away for good, saying I love you, and giving advices like eat well, sleep well, behave well, my love. While she was telling him he was scaring her, asking him to stop, and telling him that she had a boyfriend, with him responding, I don't care if you have a boyfriend, you're the love of my life. That went on from 12:42 p.m. into 2:16 p.m. as he was arriving at the school, and the last text was I love you. He started texting JT at 9:35 a.m. and they were making plans for later that day. Nick was asking JT if 2 girls would come to see them later, and throughout the day, Nicholas was pressuring JT to know if the girls would come and if one of them was coming to see him. And when JT asked why was he pressuring him to know so soon, he said that he might go see a movie instead. At 2:06 p.m., Nicholas took an Uber pool ride toward Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. And yes, you heard me right. He took an Uber pool ride. And in case you don't know what that is, it's the one that's a little cheaper, but you risk sharing with other people. So he took one of those, carrying a rifle and several hundred rounds of ammunition concealed inside a black duffel bag. During the ride, at 2:09 p.m., Nicholas texted JT, I have to tell you something important soon. And when JT asked what it was and insisted for an an answer, Nikolas said it was nothing bad. And at 2:11 p.m., Nikolas texted, "I'm heading to the movies," with JT responding, "WTF, I got the girl to come over for you." At 2:12 p.m., Nikolas responded, "Oh, fuck. And well, too late now. I didn't expect her to come." At 2:13 p.m., JT says, "WTF, dude, you better stay. I got her to come for you." Nikolas asked, "What time is she coming?" At 2:14 p.m., JT responded, "After 6-ish," and said, "Go to the movies tomorrow." At 2:16 p.m., as the Uber was arriving at the school, Nikolas responded, "Too late, man." At 2:17 p.m., JT said, "I hope you're back before 6. At 2:19 p.m., 20 minutes before school dismissal time, Nikolas exited the Uber and entered the school through an unstaffed gate that had been opened for school dismissal and made his way toward the 1200 building, a 3-story structure containing 30 classrooms on the north side of campus, typically occupied by about 900 students and 30 teachers. He was spotted and recognized by campus monitor Andrew Medina, the radio colleague inside Building 12 that Nikolas was walking toward the building. Medina did not declare a code red lockdown. The school's policies did not specify clearly who could order a lockdown, and staff had been trained not to order one unless they saw a gun or heard shots being fired. The campus monitor, who received the radio warning, hid inside the janitor's closet after hearing shots and survived the attack. Cruz entered the east side of Building 12 through an unlocked and unstaffed door. He camped out on the east stairwell, and while he was unpacking his AR-15 semi-automatic rifle, he encountered 15-year-old student Christopher McKenna, who was on a bathroom break, and warned him by saying, "You better get out of here. Something bad is about to happen." McKenna said he took off and quickly found assistant football coach Aaron Fies and alerted him to what was happening. Fies drove McKenna to safety on a golf cart before returning to confront the shooter himself. As Christopher McKenna ran for help at 2:21 p.m., Cruz exited the stairs on the first-floor hallway, where he encountered 4 students: Gina Montalto, Martin Dukey, Luke Hoyer, and Ashley Baez, and fires at them. Baez was injured, but able to get into an unlocked classroom. He then turns away and goes over to class 1216 and fires through the glass window, killing Alex Schechter. He stops and opens his backpack, grabs a tactical vest with 10 firearm magazines, and reloads his weapon. As he walks to class 1214, he fires again into Gina Montalto, Martin Dukey, and Luke Hoyer, and proceeds to fire through the glass window of class 1214, killing Helena Ramsey, Nicholas Duoret, and wounds Samantha Grady, Samantha Fuentes, Isabel Checker, and Daniela Menescal. Then he turns away from class 1214 and walks back across the hall to class 1216. Killing Alisa Al-Hadaf, Elena Patty, and wounds Justin Colton, William Olsen, Genesis Valentin, Keshava Mangapuran, and Alexander Duwarat, brother of Nicholas Duwarat, just killed in class 1214. He leaves 1216 and walks west when through the west double doors comes running Christopher Hickson. Hickson is a Navy veteran that heard the shots and is coming towards gunfire with the goal of surprise and disarm the shooter. Nicholas sees him and fires at him. Severely wounded, he falls to the ground and crawls over to an alcove. Cruz continues to walk west and passes by Gina Montalto, Martin Dukey, and Luke Hoyer and fires at them for a 3rd time. He then proceeds west and goes to class 1213 and fires through the window, killing Carmen Shentrup, and wounds Madeline Wilford, Samantha Mayer, and Benjamin Weekender. He walks west again and passes Christopher Hickson, shooting at him again. Then he reaches the west stairwell, walks into the door, and encounters Aaron Fies that came to the building to help the students. Cruz shoots and kills him. He fired 70 shots on the first floor and 2 shots in the stairwell. Then he goes up the west stairwell to the second floor. The students and teachers had heard the shots and didn't follow the procedure of the fire alarm that went off likely because of the smoke caused by the gunfire on the first floor. So they followed the procedure of active shooter, hiding and turning the lights off, what made the shooter think that floor was actually empty. He fired at 2 classrooms and shattered the windows, but those classes were actually empty. He fired 6 shots on the second floor. Nobody was hurt there. On the third floor, the students and teachers didn't hear gunshots, so they were responding to the fire alarm by evacuating towards both stairwells, west and east. And that's when they heard the shots on the second floor and raced back up to get back to the classrooms. Nikolas goes up the east stairwell to the third floor. One of the teachers, Scott Beagle, was helping the students get back to his classroom when Nikolas pops out and shoots at him 4 times, killing him immediately and making him fall right in the entrance to his classroom. Scott's sacrifice saved all the kids that got inside his classroom. Right next to it is room 1255, Stacy LaPelle's classroom, and she rushes the kids into it successfully, and while closing the door, the shooter shoots and wounds her. Nikolas continues to fire into the third floor, from east to west. There are 2 girls in front of class 1249, Kara Lager and Madel Pollack. He shoots both of them. They fall and go huddle into the alcove. He keeps on fire and hits Marian Kapachenko that runs and tries to open a locked classroom door. Then he is able to run to the west stairwell and escapes the building. Then, Kyle Lehman is hit and runs to the alcove of the restroom. He runs again and takes cover and is able to run to the stairwell and escape. Then he hits Anthony Borges, that falls gravely wounded. Other students are running down the hall. He shoots again and hits Joaquin Oliver as he runs into the restroom's alcove. Jamie Gutenberg and Peter Wang were racing down the hall to get to the stairwell door and were shot. Then Nikolas proceeded west, and as he passes through class 1249, he fires at Kara and Madel again. He moves further west and looks at the restroom's alcove where Joaquin Oliver was wounded. He fires and kills him. Then he turns away and walks further down the hall. Jamie Gutenberg was able to reach the stairwell, but she collapses still on the third floor and dies. Peter Wang was shot and was lying right in front of the west stairwell door. Nikolas walks into him and fires multiple times. Peter Wang was shot 12 times. He turns back and walks over to room 1240, a teacher's lounge that was empty. There, he shoots 5 times into the west window and 5 times into the south window that faced the campus. Then, he leaves 1240, passes the body of Peter Wang, opens the door to the west stairwell, passes the body of Jamie Gutenberg, takes off his vest and his rifle and lays it down on the floor. He runs down the west stairwell, passes Aaron Weiss's body, and goes out the door. He leaves the 1200 building at 2:27 p.m. He's wearing a maroon JROTC shirt and blends in with students and teachers that are evacuating the campus due to the fire alarm. He talks to one of the students that knew him since middle school.
Just about here is when I had turned around and I saw the shooter was standing behind me.
Okay. You didn't know who the shooter was at the time, did you?
I had known him since middle school.
Okay.
I just had not known that he had left the school.
Right. So you see him, what happens?
I see him and I turned around and, I hadn't seen him in years. I spent the first 2 years at another school, so my last 2 years were at Stoneman Douglas. Looking back, obviously had no idea. I turned around and I realized he was standing with another friend of mine. When I realized that, we kind of collided in the line, so we became one line. When we became one line, I said hi, he said hi back, and I said, you have any college plans? And he said, somewhere in Florida. At that time, we got filed into one line. He was right behind me. At that point, we got we were scaling the fence between, right, the Westglades, basically. When we came out on this end, I turned around and he wasn't there anymore.
Do you see him in the courtroom today?
Yes, I do.
Would you please point him out?
Right there?
The person in the green sweater?
Yes.
He then goes into a Walmart and buys a drink at a Subway store.
Do you see you?
Yes.
Which one's you?
The one in the green shirt and hat.
In the hat. Okay. What were you just giving him then?
His change?
Receipt?
Yeah.
Do you remember what you were serving him?
He wanted an icy mixed. It was a cherry and a blue raspberry.
He leaves Walmart and goes to the McDonald's nearby and sits down at 3:01 p.m., interacting with John Wilford, brother of Madeline Wilford, that was just injured by the shooter.
So what happened when you got to Walmart?
When I got to Walmart, I was trying to get a hold of my sister. She wasn't picking up, so I tried to get a hold of my mother, and that's when I then left my friend to go meet my mother at McDonald's.
And did you go to McDonald's?
I did.
And what happens when you go to McDonald's?
I sat down in a booth. I called her, I told her where I was, and she told me that she was on her way.
Okay. Then what happened?
And then Nikolas Cruz came and sat down right next to me.
All right. Did you know who he was?
No,
Ever meet him before?
never.
Just sat down.
Just sat down next to me. I didn't think much of it because I was panicked. So I was just trying to get back home.
So what happened when he sat down?
He just sat down. I didn't think much of it. You know, he was just, I figured he was from school because of what he was wearing, but
What was he wearing?
ROTC uniform.
Okay. So what happened then?
From then, I wasn't really, I mean, I saw him sit down, so I just was telling him, you know, like, this is so chaotic. You know, this is crazy. All these helicopters and SWAT cars coming. Like, what do you think this could be? And I don't remember him saying much, but he was just head down, wasn't really talking to me. I don't remember much of the conversation, but I was doing most of the talking.
Okay. Did he ask you anything?
No, not until I started to leave when my mother called me and told me that she was there.
What did he ask you?
He asked me for a ride when I was like starting to leave the McDonald's to meet my mother on the other side. That's when he started talking to me.
Okay. And what did you say?
He asked me for a ride. He was pretty insistent on it, and I said no. I wasn't really thinking much of it. I mean, I was just trying to get home. My sister wasn't answering her phone. I was nervous. I was panicked. I also had a bad gut feeling about it, you know, because I'm a nice person. I would offer somebody a ride like that, but just wasn't thinking in the moment.
Okay. And then what happened?
Then I got in the car with my mother, and I started to drive home.
Okay.
And then I remember seeing him again on, I don't know exactly what road it was, but I saw him walking.
Okay.
But then that was pretty much it.
Have you seen a video from McDonald's with you?
Yes.
Okay. Is that you walking in?
Yes.
If you saw that person that sat next to you in McDonald's, would you be able to identify him if you saw him again?
Yes.
Could you point him out for us?
Yeah.
The person in the blue sweater?
Yep.
Would you like to reflect that Mr. Wilford has identified the defendant, Nikolas Cruz?
The shooting lasted about 6 minutes in total, with all of the victims being shot within just under 4 minutes. School surveillance camera video showed Cruz as the shooter, and he was also recognized by eyewitnesses. He was captured by police in the nearby town of Coral Springs, just a few miles from the school, about an hour after the attack. And he was acting like he didn't remember what happened and was talking about voices and demons. Let's watch the video together.
What's going on? What's going on today, bro?
The demons, man.
Demons?
Voices.
Yeah, no problem.
Voices.
Voices and demons?
Where's the voices? What the fuck? Where the fuck am I? Holy shit. What happened?
Shut up. Just be quiet, man.
Shut up. What the fuck you do, dude? What the fuck?
After that, he was taken to a nearby hospital before being released into police custody. During his interrogation, the investigator asked multiple times about the demons that Nikolas was talking about. And throughout the interrogation, we can see that although he's not legally insane, there's definitely something off with Nikolas's brain. We are going to watch the interrogation video in 2 parts. The first part we're going to watch it right now. The second part we are going to watch after we talk about Nikolas's background. Let's do it.
All right, the school or the psychologist you want to talk to, obviously, I would have to tell them what you want to talk to them about. So, what exactly what do you want me to ask them, or why do you want to talk to a psychologist?
Find out what's wrong with me.
What do you think's wrong with you? All right. Well, the voices that you're talking about. Now, again, I'm trying not to take too many notes, but you said they started after your dad died, but they were before your mom died. So, let's see. You told me your dad died in 2004, 2005. So, how many years about do you think you've been hearing these voices?
15 years.
15?
Does that sound right?
No, because 15 on top of 5, it would be 2020. When you hear the voices, are the voices like outside your head or inside your head when you hear them?
Inside.
Okay, so it's not like you don't hear a voice from that corner talking to you. It's inside your head. And is it always the same voice, or is it only one voice?
One voice, same.
And you said it's a man's voice. Yeah. Does it sound like anybody you've ever met? Anybody you ever seen on TV? Can you tell, like, by an accent? Is it an old man, young man, white man, black, young man? About the same age as you think? There's only one voice you ever hear, right?
Yes.
If I want to know what I'm going to tell this person.
I try to control it, but
Well, how do you control it when you hear it?
try to be moving.
Okay, so if you're sitting still, you hear the voice more than if you're moving. I mean, you're talking about physically moving.
Yeah, physically moving.
Do you hear the voice when you're in bed at night sleeping?
Yes.
Do you ever see anything with the voice? Like some people say, "Oh, I see a person sitting in the corner." You don't see anybody sitting over there, do you? Just me and you, right? Do you always obey what the voice tells you to do?
Try not to.
Okay. On any given week, how many times do you think you hear the voice? All the time?
Once every day.
Once every day? Morning, afternoon, night? Always the same time?
Usually in the afternoon.
About what time?
11 to 12.
Why do you think it's those hours? It's always around lunchtime. You hear it at night when you go lay down. So you hear the voice more than at 11 and 12, right?
I hear more at night.
Or
I start hearing in the afternoon.
Now you talked about demons, and then you talk about the
Yeah, that's
voice.
the demon. The voice is the demon.
The voice is the demon. So there's not
The
two.
person, whoever it is.
Does it have a name?
Mm-hmm.
Does it ever say, "Hey, my name's Nick. Does it use your name or use somebody else's name? Just a voice with no name.
The voice was no name telling me what to do.
When you wouldn't listen to what the voice said, you ever think that something bad would happen to you from the voice for not listening to it?
Loneliness.
Huh?
Loneliness.
Loneliness. So listening to the voice was going to keep you from being lonely? Okay, so help me out with this, because again, I'm not trying to be a prick or anything like that, but how does building a fire in a fire pit when you're listening to the voice keep you from being lonely? How does that work?
Someone like that who I could talk to.
Okay. So your loneliness is fulfilled by the voice. So he's kind of like an imaginary friend. Almost.
Yes.
But did he tell you good things to do as well? I think Jerry said he does sometimes.
No, that's just me.
That's just you?
That's the bad.
So why do you want to be friends with somebody who just wants to tell you to do bad things?
To have somebody.
Wouldn't you rather be alone than be with somebody who's telling you to do bad shit? That's like being around a friend who's always getting you in trouble. Why would you want a friend like that? So you'd rather be in trouble than be lonely?
Have anyone else.
Look at your brother. I mean, you get along with your brother, right?
When you're growing up, he's been abusive.
What kind of abusive?
Name calling.
Name calling. Shit, brothers do that every day of the week. Sisters too.
That's constant.
Okay, but you have a good enough feeling towards your brother where you share with him probably one of the only secrets that you have these voices, right? So you have a decent relationship with your brother, right?
I don't know.
You know?
I don't know if he cares about me.
Do you think your brother cares about you more than the voice cares about you?
I feel like the voice cares more about me.
Has your brother ever told you to do anything bad?
No.
Did the voice tell you to buy that AR-15?
Yes.
Did it tell you, hey, buy that gun, it looks cool? How many different kinds of guns did you look at before you decided to buy that gun? A lot? And was the voice helping you pick out the gun, or was it just you picking?
No, it was a voice.
Did the AR-15 get picked out because it was similar to the gun that an Army Ranger would carry?
No, it's because of the voice.
Because of the voice.
Suggested.
Do you remember ever posting something? Did you ever, you know what the Mississippi Guardian is?
What's that?
I don't know, I'm just asking. Something was posted under the username of Nikolas Cruz on the internet, and it said, I'm going to be a professional school shooter.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Was that you who posted that?
No, wait, did you say Missouri?
No, I'm just saying, it said maybe something towards like you're the Mississippi. I don't know. He's looking on that because on the internet somebody posted under your name, Nikolas Cruz, which is a somewhat common name, I guess. There's probably more than one of you out there. I'm going to be a professional school shooter, and it was posted on September 17th, September 2007.
2017?
Yeah. So what month did your mom die?
November.
So this would have been something before your mom died. I'm not saying it's you. I'm just asking you if it is you. You remember ever posting anything on the internet like that? It may not be you.
No.
Did you ever post any pictures holding any other kind of guns on the internet, like on Instagram or anything?
I think a BB gun.
Was it a shotgun? Maybe did you ever have a Maverick shotgun?
Maverick?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And what else? 3 shotguns, the AR-15, a 9mm high point. What other guns?
AK.
An AK-47? Okay. All legitimately bought under your name.
Yes.
Nobody bought them for you, right?
No.
Was anybody there with you when you bought them?
My mother was with me when I bought all the other guns.
All the other guns but what?
But Maverick.
Maverick. So your mom was with you when you bought all the other guns?
Yeah.
Did you tell?
She's gonna come in with me.
Did you tell her why you were buying the guns?
I told her
You told her what?
it was cool. And
To protect yourself from what?
voice.
All right, so you needed all those guns to protect yourself from the voices, but the voices in your head. How are you gonna get the voice out of your head? With 3 shotguns, 3 rifles.
To keep him occupied so he doesn't do anything.
Voice told you to buy that, and the voice told you about the AR-15. What do you think if you didn't buy it? If you said, hey, I ain't buying these guns, too expensive, what do you think the voice would have done?
Okay, guys, and that concludes part 1 of our clip. Now we're going to go through Nikolas's background, and afterwards we're going to watch the second part together. Nikolas Jacob Cruz was born on September 24 of 1998 to Brenda Norma Woodard. He had the cord wrapped around his neck 3 times and had to be resuscitated. Brenda was a prostitute and drug addict most of her life. She liked to drink Colt 45 beer, Cisco wine, and use drugs like crack cocaine and smoke cigarettes. Carolyn Dickens, who testified at Nikolas's sentencing trial, was her drug and prostitution partner. She first met Brenda in the early 90s, and they were hanging out together around the time she was pregnant with Nikolas. Carolyn testified that drugs and alcohol were more important than the baby to Brenda, and said that she saw Woodard continue to take drugs, drink alcohol, and smoke cigarettes while pregnant, saying she didn't care about anything other than her addictions. Dickens was Woodard's co-defendant during one of her multiple arrests in June 6 of 1998. The 2 women were arrested together for possession of crack cocaine. Cruz was born 3 months later. In total, records show that Woodard was arrested more than 24 times from the 1980s through the 2000s, on a string of charges including domestic violence, car theft, drug offenses, weapons possession, and burglary. She had 3 children: Danielle Woodard, who grew up on and off with her mother, then Nikolas, who was adopted by Roger and Linda Cruz as a baby, and then Zachary, who was also adopted by the Cruz family and grew up with his biological brother. Danielle testified about the moment she found out her mother was pregnant with Nikolas.
She got down and went into the gas station, and I looked around and I saw glass on the floor of the car because the back seat window was busted. And Brenda came out with a little brown paper bag, and as she was pumped the gas, she came around to the front. She lit a cigarette and took a swig. That's when I noticed something in me said, she looks pregnant. She has a baby bump. And I asked her, are you pregnant? And she looked at me and she said, I got raped. And she took another swig.
Do you know what was in the paper bag that she was drinking from?
Cisco.
Okay.
Her favorite.
Brenda would also drink, smoke cigarettes, and use crack with Danielle around. She would also have crack pipes all over the house and rent her apartment for junkies to get high in front of her 12-year-old daughter. Danielle and Carolyn Dickens both testified that they saw Woodard take drugs and drink alcohol while pregnant with Nikolas. Having been given up by Woodard, Cruz was adopted by Linda and Roger in 1998, as was his biological brother Zachary in 2000, the couple raising both boys together. Linda Cruz, who turned 50 shortly after adopting Nikolas, was a stay-at-home mom. Roger Cruz, then 61, owned a successful marketing business. Linda Cruz had always wanted a child, but she suffered multiple miscarriages. And because of her age, she couldn't adopt through normal agencies. So she resorted to private adoption using a lawyer. She was very specific about not wanting a black, mixed race, or special needs baby. But after one failed adoption, she was desperate and agreed to take Brenda's baby, knowing about the mother's drug use. Linda's friend Trish Westerland, testified that once Linda got Nikolas, she felt like her family was complete. Trish's daughter and Nikolas were friends, and she would talk for him and help him even being 7 months younger than him. He couldn't communicate, and he didn't seem to understand when people talked to him. Linda and Patricia's daughter were the ones communicating for him. Roger and Trish both noticed that he was behind, but Linda didn't want to see anything wrong with him, and she wasn't receptive when people mentioned. 2 employees of Roder Children's Center reported that Nikolas Cruz was first identified as developmentally delayed as soon as 1 year old. At 3 years old, at least 2 areas of development were not at age-appropriate level. He presented limited expressive language, poor gross and fine motor skills, aggressive behavior, and limited social skills. He would isolate himself, sit in a corner, and most of the time he had no expression of emotion. But if kids got close to him or he wanted a toy they had, he would hit, push, and scratch them. He only started to have some words when he was 2 years old, so he used biting and hitting to communicate. He also had animal fantasy behavior, where he would act like a tiger by pounding, climbing, crawling, and no one could determine what caused that. Very early on, it was noticed that something was different about Nikolas, and he was eligible for special education services alongside a tailor-made individualized education program. Concerns were expressed to the parents, but they would try to say that he would grow out of it. After a little while, Linda got on board to get a professional assessment. At 5, just as Cruz entered kindergarten, he witnessed his father suffer a fatal heart attack at age 67 on August 11, 2004. He would start attending grief counseling in 2008, 4 years after him witnessing his father dying. Finay Broud, a friend of Linda at the time that happened, told the jury what Linda told her about that moment.
She said he was in the den with the boys. And then she said, I was making lunch in the kitchen. And I saw Nikolas. Nikolas came running down the hallway and ran into his room. And he was crying. And she said, Nikolas, what happened? Daddy yelled at you? And he said, as clear as the sun shines. No, Daddy's dead. And she ran to the back of the house. And she put Roger on the floor. He was on the couch. She called 911, and she tried to revive him, and the ambulance got there, but it was too late.
That left Linda Cruz alone in her mid-50s, with 2 sons that would challenge a much younger couple. Roger refinanced the house multiple times and didn't tell Linda, so she would only find out that after he died. Unemployed, she became paranoid about spending, keeping her thermostats in the 80s and unplugging unused appliances. Other than that, she had expenses that other parents didn't. Cruz's mental health treatments weren't fully covered by insurance, plus medication and all the property damage that he caused on his angry outbursts. We'll talk more about those throughout the video. At age 6, he started psychiatric treatment and was prescribed drugs for ADHD. Frederick Kravitz, a clinical psychologist, met Cruz when he was a first-grade student at age 8. He noted there was no consistency in treatment, which was absolutely necessary in Nikolas's case. He had a sense that Linda would only show up when something had happened. Dr. Kravitz also observed that Nikolas was peculiar and acted much younger than his age.
Well, Nikolas was a very peculiar little child. He was 8. He probably acted like he was maybe 6 at the most. A lot of psychopathology, anxious, tense, obviously aggressive, fearful at times, rather withdrawn.
In engaging with Nikolas, do you believe that he struggled with social skills and communication with other people?
Yes.
How was his eye contact when he spoke to you?
It was hard to get him to look at me. He certainly showed some autistic tendencies, but that wasn't full-blown by any means.
Did you diagnose him with autism?
No, but he had some autistic qualities.
Like what?
The withdrawal, the isolation, the lack of interaction.
And you mentioned earlier that Nikolas was very worrisome and had a lot of anxiety.
Yes. Yeah, I think there was a palpable fear of abandonment, which was probably related to the fact that his adopted father had passed away a couple of years before. He was extremely fearful she would forget to pick him up from school, and he'd be stranded there, and no one would come get him.
Cruz's behavior was often strange and sometimes violent. When he was 9, a parent called the police after he hit her child in the head with a rock. At middle school, his outbursts disrupted classes, and he plastered his homework with racist slurs, swastikas, obscenities, and stick figures having sex or shooting each other. We'll get into all that in a bit. Psychiatrist Lori Karp treated Nikolas from 9 to 13 years old. She prescribed the antipsychotic Risperdal, in addition to the ADHD medication he was already taking. Linda told the doctor he was adopted, but didn't mention the drug used by the birth mother. Risperdal was added because Linda told her about an incident at school.
The mother had told me that he had an incident at school where he had threatened to stab the teacher and an aide. He was aggressive, destroying property. Police were called, and so we added the Risperdal to see if it would help calm his moods.
After a while, they added the medication Intunif, since he was still presenting aggressive behavior. Zachary was also prescribed the same medication, but because of the cost, Linda eventually stopped the medication without doctor's consent. When Cruz was a student at West Glades Middle School, he was constantly in trouble for insulting teachers and staff, disruptive behavior, using profanity, and at least one fight. His mother was called in more than a dozen times, and Cruz was frequently sent to counseling. During the 2013 school year, 26 disciplinary incidents and 15 in-school suspensions are added to Cruz's record. During one school suspension, Cruz went into a bathroom and broke a water faucet. A functional behavioral assessment was completed by a behavioral specialist at the school. It detailed how Cruz drew pictures of shooting victims. On another day, the expert report stated, Nikolas will find any excuse to bring up guns. Psychiatrists recommended an involuntary admission of Cruz to a residential treatment facility starting in 2013. One of his teachers, Carrie On, was reportedly afraid of him. She was a language arts teacher, and she kept Nikolas's assignments for years in fear that one day he would do something bad. Let's watch a clip of her testimony.
When talking about figurative language and onomatopoeias, NC shouted out, like a gun shooting, NC will find any excuse to bring up shooting guns or violence. NC continued to talk, and when I said, I know that you can behave, I've seen you, you're a good kid, he responded by shouting, I'm a bad kid, I want to kill.
Can you just read the first paragraph of that note, please?
NC was unescorted today and hanging out in the hallways. When I left my classroom to use the restroom, I told him I'd be right back, and he responded by saying, screw you. I told him that was inappropriate and unnecessary. He then responded by saying, get out of here. When I came back to my classroom, I had makeup work for him to do. As I walked past him, he made a move as if he was going to lunge at me and laughed. NC was escorted in with a sub, shadowing him today. He came in nicely, but then began to use profanity. The student made a comment about him and another kid joking around, and then NC threatened to attack him. NC made the following comments, I'm going to attack you, and I'll kick your ass if you don't stop. NC also used profanity several times in class, calling another student an extremely inappropriate name. We had a fire drill approximately 15 minutes into class. NC at first panicked and then calmed down. He walked with the class to the location that we were to go to for the fire drill, which was off Homburg Road. NC stood up against the fence with his friends and was talking to them. When a car came down the street, NC decided to dart out into the road in front of the car. All the teachers yelled at him to get out of the road. NC laughed and just went back to the fence. Nick entered the class nicely, but then proceeded to panic during the fire drill. Nick was warned of the fire drill previously and had no reason to be alarmed. He was told to walk next to me and continuously tried to walk away from me as we headed to the basketball courts. On the way to the courts, he purposely stepped on the other students' shoes, feet, and held out his arms as we crossed across the courts to knock into other students. Nick was redirected several times and told to stop these actions. When waiting on the courts for the all clear whistle, Nick stuck up his middle fingers on both hands and directed them at other students across the basketball courts. Nick was told to stop. Once we all returned to the classroom, Nick was very worked up and anxious.
Was his behavior typical of the students in your class?
Not at all. Nicholas has very erratic and unsettling behaviors in the classroom. For example, he will shout out and make loud noises or comments, run out of the classroom screaming, or says inappropriate comments, sexual and or violent. Nicholas has repeatedly drawn naked individuals showing all body parts and has drawn violent images, people shooting at each other. I strongly feel that Nicholas is a danger to the students and faculty at the school. I do not feel that he understands the difference between his violent video games and reality. He's constantly showing aggressive behavior and poor judgment. His drawings in class show violent acts, people shooting at each other, or creepy sexual pictures, dogs with large penises. He's pretended to masturbate in class. He uses foul language and disregards everyone around him. Nicholas has been reprimanded on many occasions, verbally, referrals, IS, etc., and continues to act in the same manner over and over again.
And in all your years of teaching, have you had kids who misbehave in your class?
Yes, I've had some.
In your teaching experience, have you taught kids with ADHD?
Yes.
In your opinion, was Nikolas different from all of that?
Yes.
There was no one like him ever before and ever since in your teaching experience, right?
Yes, that I've had in my class.
Linda Cruz became so overwhelmed in Nikolas's early teens. A social services agency, Henderson Behavioral Health, was assigned to help. A Brother County deputy was called to the home over reports of a domestic disturbance. Linda Cruz called the police, saying Nikolas refused to go to school, so she put his Xbox in the trunk of her car, and that enraged Nikolas, that retaliated by throwing a chair, a dog bowl, and a drinking glass across the room. By the time the deputy arrived, the floor was littered with things that the teen threw against the wall. Deputies also responded to a call that Cruz threw Linda against the wall because she took away his video games. She told police on different occasions that her son suffered from developmental and learning disabilities, OCD, ADHD, and anger issues. Henderson behavioral health counselors said that hospitalization for mental health evaluation was not warranted for Nikolas. Brother County Sheriff's deputies responded to at least 36 911 emergency calls from the home where Cruz lived with his younger brother Zachary and adoptive mother Linda. Chaos reigned in the home where Nikolas Cruz grew up. He and his half-brother Zachary tormented their adoptive mother. By the time Cruz reached middle school in the early 2010s, the pair took their fists and baseball bats to the walls, leaving gaping holes. Despite Cruz's tantrums, Linda Cruz told teachers and counselors he was gentle and loving, a mama's boy. Friends testified that wasn't wholly a facade. Nikolas and his mother did have a strong, often affectionate attachment, and she favored him over his brother. Still, Zachary remained popular in the neighborhood, while Cruz was an outcast, and not just with children. John Vesey, the former principal at Westglades, testified that Cruz's emotional needs were too extreme to be successful in mainstream school. Teachers were scared of him, and there was concern about the safety of the other students. Vesey wrote a recommendation letter requesting that Nikolas go to Cross Creek, a therapeutic day school for children with emotional and learning disabilities.
This letter requests consideration of a behavior intervention program for Nikolas Cruz, an 8th grade student at Westglade Middle School. Nikolas is identified as an emotionally, behaviorally disabled, and his behaviors are becoming increasingly destructive. Additionally, his academic progress has declined. Nikolas Cruz currently holds a 0.416 cumulative GPA, and his first quarter grades consist of Fs in 5 of the 6 classes in which he was enrolled. In addition to his academic concerns, he has received 6 bus referrals for misconduct on the bus, including disruption, disobeying the bus driver, using profanity towards the driver and other students, and harassing students. This year, he has been served 24 referrals in the first one as early as the first week of school. These disciplinary referrals range from disobedience and insubordination to profanity towards staff members, major disruptions on campus, petty theft, defiance of authority, possession of inappropriate items, and vandalism. He has served a consequence of in-school suspension 15 times. This behavior creates chaos and safety concerns. His teachers are becoming more afraid of him because he has used profanity towards them, become verbally, physically aggressive by kicking and punching desks, file cabinets, and an overhead projector. He has broken the glass window of one classroom door by kicking the glass. Nick was verbally combative with the teacher as she turned to walk away. He threw a ball of paper and hit her. While in the front office serving internal suspension consequence, Nick went to the restroom and broke the water faucet.
And the letter worked. Cruz was transferred from Westglades Middle School to Cross Creek. But that didn't last long. We'll get there. Now we are going to skip the timeline a little bit because we are going to talk about the doctor that treated Nikolas from 2011 to 2017. And that was his last doctor before the shooting. We are going to go through the whole treatment and then we'll get back on track. So keep in mind that things that we are going to mention here are going to be talked about in more detail further in the video. Dr. Brett Negin was the doctor that treated Nikolas from 2011 to 2017, like I said before. He testified that Nikolas had a history of ADHD and he was taking two medications, Focalin, which is an ADHD medication, and Risperdal, an antipsychotic. His mother complained about her son's irritability, so he doubled the dose of Risperdal and prescribed clonidine, which is an ADHD non-stimulant medication to treat impulsiveness. Linda again failed to mention to the doctor that Nikolas was exposed to drugs and alcohol during pregnancy. Dr. Negin's diagnosis for Nikolas was ADHD and disruptive behavior disorder. In addition to that, he also had a potential diagnosis to rule out, which was pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified, which is related to autism and Asperger's. The not otherwise specified means that he has some symptoms but doesn't meet full criteria. The symptoms basis were poor social skills, irritability, not appropriate eye contact, and speech delay. In 2011, by the end of the school year, Linda stopped Risperdal after the doctor increased in the last appointment because she thought it wasn't being effective. Nikolas received poor behavior referrals in the last 3 weeks of school, and she didn't tell the doctor. In April of 2014, he was made aware that Nikolas was going to Cross Creek. In February 2016, Nikolas was full-time in Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School and expressed concern with difficulty focusing on academics. In November of 2016, Linda expressed that he had some physical altercations with peers at school and had defiant behaviors in general. Both Nikolas and Linda expressed they didn't want him to go back to Cross Creek. In August of 2017, 10 weeks before his last appointment, Nikolas wasn't taking his meds. After that, they went back because he wasn't in Marjory Stoneman Douglas anymore and was going to be attending a learning center from noon to 5 p.m. and they were concerned about his ability to focus. He was also working at the dollar store. Dr. Negin informed Linda and Nikolas of the importance of compliance with attending appointments and of going to Henderson Mental Health. He offered to schedule the next appointment, but they said they would call later to book it, and that was his last appointment. In total, Nikolas had 77 disciplinary referrals in Westglades Middle School, and that was never mentioned to the doctor. Dr. Nirma Ortiz, a Brother County Public School psychiatrist, and Rosa O'Connor, the school therapist, signed a 2-page letter dated June 5, 2014, and addressed it to Dr. Negin to warn him that Cruz had a preoccupation with guns and the military and perseverates on this topic inappropriately, that he dreamed of killing others and is covered in blood, and his mother feared he was armed with a hatchet. report. Dr. Negin said that he never received the letter, and under cross-examination in 2022, said he was unaware that Cruz was already considering being a mass shooter, stating, "There's nothing in the record that would signify that whatsoever." It begs the question of how, even without the letter, he could treated Nikolas for 5 years and missed the warning signs. Now back to the timeline. During treatment with Dr. Negin, Cruz continued getting services from Henderson Behavioral Health from the time Cruz was in middle school through late 2016. He not only got counseling from them, but the staff there were deeply involved in major aspects of his life, providing input about his mother's parenting skills, his medical care, and his education. Over 9 years, Cruz regularly received hundreds of hours of therapy sessions from Henderson. Despite Cruz's history at Westglades Middle School, he was allowed to enroll in Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School after a short stint at Cross Creek. Henderson's employees took part on the decision to mainstream Nikolas from Cross Creek to Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. He was heavily medicated at the time. Cruz was in the Stoneman Douglas Army Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps, JROTC. He excelled at shooting, with other cadets calling him the Wolf. This is also of concern, how he was able to enroll in a marksmanship course, being taught to use guns when he had reportedly taken or was still taking ADHD medication. The marksmanship course is taught using air rifles. Regardless, since 2014, the Department of Defense's medical qualification standards regarding ADHD stimulants disqualify applicants if they have been treated with ADHD drugs within the previous year and/or they displayed signs of the disorder. He was suspended for 2 days for fighting, only to return to be suspended again 9 days after the fight, this time for hurling profane insults. A week after the suspension, a student reported that Cruz was depressed and cutting himself, and also ingested gasoline in an attempt to kill himself. The student said Cruz wanted to buy a gun for hunting and had drawn a swastika on his backpack. Counselors from Henderson advised the police that Cruz was not at risk to harm himself or anyone else. An investigator's report said that Cruz's clinician from Henderson has stated there were no issues with Cruz's medication and that he was being compliant to taking the medication and attending to appointments. He was assessed for the need of hospitalization in school and by the Youth Emergency Services from Henderson, which could have led to hospitalization either voluntary or through Baker Act, but they determined that Cruz was not at risk to harm himself or others. By 2016, deputies were called after a neighbor's son saw a disturbing Instagram post that seemed to suggest Cruz planned to shoot up the school. At the time, deputies concluded that Cruz owned knives and a BB gun. They passed along the information to a school resource officer at Stoneman Douglas, but it's not clear whether any other steps were taken. Cruz also worried officials at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High, who on at least one occasion alerted a mobile crisis unit to get him emergency counseling. Shortly after, Cruz bought his first gun, one of at least 10 guns he purchased legally after turning 18. Statements from students report that he shown them knives, bullets, and guns. A former classmate said Cruz had anger management issues and often joked about guns and gun violence, which included threats of shooting up establishments. The brother of a 2016 graduate described him as super stressed out all the time, talked about guns a lot, and tried to hide his face. Another student who was enrolled at the school at the time of the shooting said, "I think everyone had in their minds if anybody was going to do it, it was going to be him." The school administration had circulated an email to teachers warning that Cruz had made threats against other students. They also banned him from wearing a backpack on campus. The school district conducted an assessment of the handling of Cruz. According to their redacted report, a year before the shooting, Cruz sought help from education specialists as his grades at Stoneman Douglas were declining. He was an 18-year-old junior and met with specialists with his mother. The specialists recommended him to go to Cross Creek, where he had done well before, but he wanted to graduate with his class at Stoneman Douglas and rejected this option as a legal adult. He was expelled in 2017 for disciplinary reasons. After that, Cruz requested to go to Cross Creek, but he was told that a new assessment was needed, delaying action, and the request was denied. As he could not be expelled from the Brother County school system completely, he was transferred to alternative placement and bounced between 3 alternative schools. In February of 2017, Cruz legally purchased the AR-15 style semi-automatic rifle used in the shooting from a Coral Springs gun store after having passed the required background check. At the time of the shooting in Florida, it was legal for people as young as 18 years old to purchase guns from licensed dealers. The minimum age requirement has since been raised to 21. On November 1st, 2017, Linda Cruz died at age 68. With her death, Cruz lost one of the only people close to him, according to friends and family. He was also reported to be depressed. After Linda died, Nikolas and Zachary called their half-brothers and sisters, asking for a place to live, but no one would take them. Cruz, then 19, and his brother Zachary moved to the care of a family friend, Roxanne the Champs. Within 2 weeks, police were called because of a reported fight. The Champs told the dispatcher that Nikolas had bought tons of ammo, has used a gun against people before, and has put the gun to other people's heads in the past. Linda's friend Trish testified that she was very surprised when she heard that Nikolas was living at Roxanne's house because Linda told her her son Rocky sodomized Nikolas when he was 10 years old.
She had told me that her neighbor's older son, she walked into Nikolas's room, I believe, and saw him sodomizing Nikolas.
What was the name of the neighbor?
Roxanne DeChamps and Paul Gold.
What was the name of her eldest son?
Rock.
Okay. And Linda told you she personally observed this action?
Yes.
Okay. And what did she do as a result of observing this?
She was going to go to, I guess, the authorities, but the boy's mother sent him to Canada to live with his father.
So the mother, Roxanne, sent Rock to Canada?
Yes.
Do you know if that in fact happened?
I don't.
Okay.
Nikolas also had been broken up with by his girlfriend recently and was really struggling to cope with that fact. He told a psychologist he chose Valentine's Day because he thought no one would love him. Cruz said, "I didn't like Valentine's Day and I wanted to ruin it for everyone." In a video he produced before the shooting, and certainly an indication of the failure of years of treatment, Cruz said, "My life is nothing and meaningless. I live a lone life. I live in seclusion and solitude. I hate everyone and everything." Let's check the videos.
Alright, so here's the plan. I'm gonna go take an Uber in the afternoon before 2:40. From there I'll go onto school campus, walk up the stairs, unload my bags, and get my AR and shoot people down at the main courtyard. I'll wait, and people will die. Today is the day that it all begins. The day of my massacre shall begin. All the kids in school will in fear and hide. From the wrath of my power they will know who I am. I am nothing, I am no one. My life is nothing and meaningless. Everything that I hold dear I let go beyond your half. Every day I see the world ending another day. I live a lone life, live in seclusion and solitude. I hate everyone and everything. With the power of my AR, you will all know who I am. I had enough of being told what to do and when to do. I had enough of telling me that I'm an idiot and a dumbass. But in real life, you're all the dumbass. You're all stupid and brainwashed by these fucking political government programs. You will all see, you will all know who my name is. My love for you, Angie, will never go away. I hope to see you in the afterlife. On one day or another, you will end and we'll all die. Hello. My name is Nick, and I'm going to be the next school shooter of 2018. My goal is at least 20 people with an AR-15 and a couple tracer rounds. I think I can get done. Location is Stoneman Douglas in Parkland, Florida. It's going to be a big event. And when you see me on the news, you'll all know who I am. You're all going to die. Yeah. Can't wait.
In addition to reports to both Broward and Palm Beach sheriff's offices, the FBI was also notified about Cruz. The first tip came in September when a Mississippi bail bondsman, Ben Knight, who also makes YouTube videos, alerted the FBI that someone left a disturbing message in one of his videos' comment section. Ben Knight said, and I quote, "I think that any responsible and mentally sound human being would take a comment like that seriously, whether the person on the other end meant it or not." The Bureau received a second tip on January 5th, weeks before Cruz carried out the shooting. The caller, who the FBI said was a person close to the suspect, warned that Cruz had a desire to kill people and worried about the potential of him conducting a school shooting. She was concerned about Cruz owning guns, posting on Instagram that he wanted to kill people and that he may go shoot up a school. Days after the shooting, the FBI said that protocols were not followed and that information should have been forwarded to the Miami field office. Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel described Cruz's online profiles and accounts as very, very disturbing. They contained pictures and posts of him with a variety of weapons, including long knives, a shotgun, a pistol, and a BB gun. Police said that he held extremist views. Social media accounts that were thought to be linked to him contained anti-black and anti-Muslim slurs. YouTube comments linked to him included, and I quote, "I wanna die killing a shit ton of people. I hate people. I'm going to be a professional school shooter. I can't wait to kill black people and rape a girl in 2020. Cruz also idolized many different infamous mass murderers, such as the Columbine shooters Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, the Virginia Tech shooter Shang Hui Cho, the Aurora Theater shooter James Egan Holmes, and above all, Elliot Rodger, a member of the incel community. Incel stands for involuntary celibate, and this group of men believe they are unable to find a romantic or sexual partner despite desiring one. Elliot went on a murderous rampage and ended his own life. He left several videos calling himself the Supreme Gentleman. Cruz's YouTube and Google searches include various mass shootings, the song Pumped Up Kicks multiple times that is allegedly about the Columbine shooting. He also searched, "My mother just died and I'm staying with people. Should I trust them? How to get a girlfriend? Why am I isolated? Group therapy sessions. Mental disorders. Loneliness. How do I help myself with these bad feelings?" And homicidal thoughts and urges on PsychCentral.com. Cruz had never been arrested until the day of the shooting. After his arrest, he was evaluated by mental health professionals from both sides, prosecution and defense. The defense focusing on the alcohol consumption by the birth mother, arguing that he fell into the fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, with the prosecution rebuting, saying that he was exaggerating and faking symptoms for fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, and the diagnosis that the state state psychologist gave him were borderline personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder, which are also really serious mental health disorders. I'm going to show you a clip explaining borderline personality disorder because I think it's important for us to watch that before we go into the second part of the interrogation video, which is next.
The definition involves three different sectors of psychopathology. The first and most discriminating involves the interpersonal relationships. Borderline patients have intense, unstable relationships marked by shifts between idealizing someone and devaluing someone. They also have fears of abandonment and fears of rejection, which is an associated feature reflecting a real fear about being alone. Some, including myself, feel that that is really where the core of this disorder is in the interpersonal area. A second sector of psychopathology has to do with emotional dysregulation, but this includes a tendency towards angry outbursts or inappropriate anger. Many patients will say that they're always angry or that they can't control their anger. Mood changes that you could say is something that might characterize people with bipolar disorder, but in borderline patients, it characteristically involves feelings of anger and is characteristically very reactive to a social context and in particular to adverse interpersonal events. And a third part of that picture is emptiness. It seems as if it's something that developed as a result of a long-standing sense of being neglected. The third sector of psychopathology belongs to the behavioral problems. And here, deliberate self-harm, recurrent suicidal ideation. Borderline patients often do hurt themselves and hurt themselves repeatedly. The more they do that, the more apt they are to be suicidal. Self-harm acts are both something that are self-punitive and a way of easing this dysphoric states of mind that they can't relieve otherwise. It also can become a call for help. The other behavioral symptom has to do with patterns of impulsivity. The borderline patients typically have unsafe sex, drive recklessly, in addition are frequently bulimic or substance abusing. So that's the behavioral realm. The last realm has to do with cognition. And here, borderline patients, and this is why they were originally thought maybe to be an atypical form of schizophrenia, can have these lapses of reality testing. For instance, they can be like paranoid ideas. But the paranoid ideas usually occur when a borderline patient feels otherwise alone. And the idea that somebody's watching them actually is a psychological way of not being alone. They'd rather have somebody watching them than being alone. They can also have sort of hallucinogenic type phenomena when these are people who may have trouble going to sleep at night because they're alone and they may hear voices under those circumstances. I say they're not really psychotic because they reverse very quickly when you put the borderline person in a social context where there's other people around paying attention. So that's the definition. One thing I haven't mentioned is a disturbed sense of self, a sense that they're not really stable. It changes. A lot of borderline patients will say that I behave a lot depending on who I'm talking to or who I'm with and what I perceive they want or what they expect from me. It's an ill-formed and unstable identity.
Okay, guys, so I thought it was important for us to understand a little bit more about the disorder that the state psychologist said he had, so we can watch the second part of the interrogation video, hopefully with different eyes.
My bite has gotten too expensive. What do you think the voice would have done? Did you stop talking to you?
No, I hurt myself.
How would you hurt yourself?
Cut.
You were a cutter?
Okay.
What did you cut yourself with?
Knife.
Those little scratches on your arms? Let me look at them. Come on, man. I get worse scratches weeding my flower bed than that. You weren't trying to hurt yourself.
Yes, it wasn't sharp.
Was it sharp enough?
No.
How many knives do you have?
4, 5.
How long have you been cutting yourself?
Years.
Did your mom know you were a cutter?
I don't know.
Did you ever see your arms and say what happened to your arms? No?
No.
How about your brother? Did your brother know you were a cutter?
I believe he was.
Is your brother a cutter?
No.
So when you cut yourself, it's because the voice just told you to cut yourself. And if you didn't talk or you didn't listen to the voice, then you were going to be alone because your voice was your only friend. That's kind of what you're saying. Since me and you have been talking, have you heard the voices? What's it said?
For you to cut yourself.
For you to cut yourself. How many times has the voice talked to you while we've been in the room here together?
A lot.
Has the voice said jump out of the chair and do anything bad to that policeman?
Saying kill yourself now.
I don't really believe there is a voice, to be honest with you.
Voice.
No, I don't think there is. I don't think the demon exists.
I think.
I don't think it exists.
No, but
I think the demon. Go ahead, but.
am I able to think to myself about it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can think all you want. I'm just.
No, I'm just thinking about the demon.
Well, you want me? I'll leave you to think for a while, and I'll come back and talk to you. I personally, I think you're using the demon as an excuse.
I'm not. I promise.
You could have stopped the demon by getting a prescription for marijuana. You could have stopped the demon by getting a prescription for Xanax. You could have stopped the demon by illegally doing marijuana, which you were doing anyway. You could have stopped the demon by doing Xanax illegally, which you were doing anyway. You could have stopped the demon anytime you want. You didn't want to stop the demon.
No, that's not true.
You didn't. You could have. I've given you 4 ways you could have stopped the demon, man. Okay, now you're just acting like that because.
No.
Okay, well, relax. You're just acting like that because I'm making sense. Calm down. I'm making sense, and you don't like when it makes sense.
No.
Because it doesn't fit into the story you're telling right now.
I'm telling you the story. It's just true. It's
Well, why are you looking at your arm now?
I'm trying to understand why.
Well, why didn't you want to stop the demon?
I don't know.
Because I think you like the demon.
No, I don't.
Why didn't you stop it then?
I don't like the demon. I don't like the demon. I don't like the demon. I don't like the demon.
Well, that's if the demon even exists.
Can I get an attorney or something?
You want what? An attorney?
Yeah.
Did the demon or the voices tell you to get an attorney? Okay. All right. Well, you tell the voice that don't hit yourself in the head because the attorney, the demon just requested I will stop talking to you.
I'm scared. I'm scared.
You're scared of what?
I'm scared of. Why wouldn't he protect me?
What?
Why wouldn't he protect me, man?
I don't know.
Why wouldn't he protect me?
All right. Well, again, your demon wants an attorney. Does the demon know an attorney? Any name in particular? Okay. All right. Well, just relax. You're done talking to me. All right.
Yeah.
Calm down. And once again, I grabbed the wrong key. If you need something, just yell. My desk is on the other side of the room, all right? I'm just on the other side of the wall.
In October of 2021, Nikolas Cruz pled guilty to 17 counts of first-degree murder and 17 counts of attempted murder.
How do you wish to plead?
Guilty.
I accept your plea of guilty. I find that you are alert and intelligent, that you had made an informed decision with the advice of counsel. I find that you have made this decision after going over and understanding all of your rights, and that you are knowingly, voluntarily, and intelligently waiving each and every one of the rights that I went over with you today.
I believe Mr. Cruz wanted to make a statement to the court and to the victims present in the courtroom.
Okay.
May I take off my mask?
Sure.
I am very sorry for what I did, and I have to live with it every day. And that if I were to get a second chance, I will do everything in my power to try to help others. And I am doing this for you, and I do not care if you do not believe me. And I love you, and I know you don't believe me, but I have to live with this every day. And it brings me nightmares, and I can't live with myself sometimes. But I try to push through because I know that's what you guys would want me to do. I hate drugs, and I believe this country would do better if everyone would stop smoking marijuana and doing all these drugs and causing racism and violence out in the streets. I'm sorry, and I can't even watch TV anymore. And I'm trying my best to maintain my composure, and I just want you to know I'm really sorry. And I hope you give me a chance to try to help others. If I believe it's your decision to decide where I go and whether I live or die. Not the jury's. I believe it's your decision. I'm sorry.
In 2022, the sentencing trial was held to determine if he would get the death penalty or life in prison without parole. The prosecution, arguing for the death penalty, emphasized the premeditated and heinous nature of the crime. They highlighted Cruz's extensive planning, including his acquisition of firearms and ammunition, as well as his detailed online search history, social media posts, and YouTube videos. They also brought forward emotional testimonies from survivors, family members of the victims, and first responders to emphasize the profound loss and trauma caused by the massacre. They also presented evidence of Cruz's violent behavior in the years leading up to the shooting, aiming to establish that he was fully aware of his action and their consequences. The defense attorneys for Cruz sought to persuade the jury to sentence him to life in prison without parole instead of death. They focused on Cruz's birth mother's consumption of drugs and alcohol while pregnant, and how that affects the brain of the developing fetus. They brought specialists to talk about fetal alcoholic disorders and how that can be on a spectrum in which not all people that have been affected by prenatal alcohol exposure develop physical characteristics. They can present only brain developmental symptoms, and by analyzing Nikolas's records, they concluded that he had long-term mental health disorders due to his birth mother alcohol and drugs consumption, and was never treated accordingly because his adoptive mother was overwhelmed and in denial. Furthermore, the fact that multiple doctors, teachers, therapists, and the police were aware of his erratic behavior and failed to help him. They argued that these factors impaired his ability to make rational decisions, asking the jury to show mercy by considering his mental health and upbringing as mitigating circumstances. Their goal was to humanize Cruz and demonstrate that he was the product of a broken system that failed to provide him with the help he needed. State's expert witness, Dr. Michael Brannon, a psychologist, reviewed records of interviews with Cruz and claimed, and I quote, "This is somebody who absolutely 110% has no capacity of understanding of how to deal with any negative effect, particularly anger." Brennan said that Cruz appears to have an antisocial personality disorder, attention deficit disorder, a learning disorder, and borderline personality trait. After months of testimony and deliberation, the jury did not reach an unanimous decision required for the death penalty under Florida law, with 3 of them voting against death and having ultimately to recommend life in prison without the possibility of parole. The jury's decision sparked controversy, particularly among the victims' families, many of whom felt that Cruz deserved the death penalty for his actions. The case highlighted significant debates surrounding mental health in criminal sentencing and the broader issues of gun control and school safety. In the aftermath of the shooting, a change was made in the death penalty laws in Florida. In April 2023, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed legislation that lowered the threshold for juries to recommend death sentences from an unanimous vote to a vote of 8-4 in favor of death. The Florida non-unanimity law comes after a Brother County jury failed to reach a consensus on the death penalty for Nikolas Cruz. Cruz's sentence could also reflect changing attitudes about the death penalty. A poll from 2019 found 60% of Americans prefer a penalty of life imprisonment compared to just 36% who prefer a penalty of death for murder. This marked the first time that a majority of Americans preferred life imprisonment to the death penalty in the history of this poll, which has been administered every 3 years since 1986. In regards to Cruz's life in prison, according to a former Florida prison warden, he will likely be placed in protective management, separated from the other inmates to keep him from being harmed, meaning that he will only have contact with prison employees. For 23 hours a day, he'll be in his 9 by 12 feet cell with a bed, metal sink, and metal toilet. And Florida prisons do not have air conditioning. For 1 hour a day, he will be allowed alone into an outdoor cage that usually measures 20 feet by 20 feet, where he can exercise and bounce a basketball. And because he has a life sentence, he will probably be last in line for education and rehabilitation programs. Now guys, what Nikolas Cruz did is horrific, and that should never had happened. And yes, he does deserve to be punished. But with everything that we heard about his background, I really think that giving him the death penalty would be the system failing him once again. And I don't think that's right at all. So yes, I do agree with the jury's decision of life without parole. A lot of people are already against the death penalty, and I think it's because they think it's not our place to give such punishment. And I understand their point. It makes sense. But my opinion is that some killers are deserving of it, but just a tiny percentage of them. I feel like people want everyone to get the death penalty, and why? Life without parole can be worse than that, because you have to live your entire life and you're still gonna die in prison in an uncomfortable, dangerous, dirty, hot, cold, horrible place alone. So I'm not completely against it, but I don't think Nikolas Cruz is in that category. And that's why I think it would be wrong to give him the death penalty, especially because of all the warning signs, all the mental health treatment, and nothing. No one helped him. No one did what had to be done to help him. And I honestly think it's a disservice to the community now that the death penalty laws changed. Because right now in Florida, it doesn't have to be unanimous anymore. It's a vote 8-4, which is 67%. I don't want 67% of people determining if someone should live or die. That's not how it works, in my opinion. I think it should be 100% or it's life without parole. And life without parole is punishment enough. Some people think that if it's not the worst scenario, then it's not justice. I think they're wrong, and I think we should apply justice considering the nuances of the human being that committed the crime and the crime itself. I just think we need to be more merciful and understanding of mental illnesses and see that as the problem that it is. Well, guys, that's it for today's episode. I hope you liked it. Thank you very much for watching, and please subscribe, like, and comment. Alright, so I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.